Shabbat Shalom. Today I have the privilege of sharing the words of Jocelyn Brooks. At each nursing job interview, they ask me about my prior experience in finance and why, after 19 years, they asked, I made such a significant career change. I was born in Trinidad, the 11th of 12 children. My middle name could easily have been hand-me-down. As a family with a dozen kids, we had no routine healthcare visits. We received our childhood vaccines at school, and my mother took care of the rest. She was our seamstress, cook, hairdresser, spiritual leader, and most importantly, our healer. From a young age, I became her assistant whenever she tended to ailments. Whether it was insect bites, measles, mumps, bumps, bruises, or sprains, I was right there by her side. I prided myself in anticipating her next move as I held out scissors, tape, gauze, alcohol, iodine, and sometimes even lit a candle. For some wounds, she felt that heat benefited healing. I was fascinated by her ability to care for us, and that's where my passion for healthcare was born. Eventually, though, I moved to the United States and found myself working in one of the largest investment banks in the world. I started as a research assistant and worked my way up to the corporate level of vice president. It was financially rewarding, and I grew professionally. But my passion for nursing never faded. If anything, it grew stronger each day. Then came the morning of September 11th, 2001. The sky was a perfect blue as my husband drove me to the subway station. We talked about our plans for the evening and said our usual goodbyes. Like any other day, I boarded the train and went to work on the 40th floor of One World Trade Center. After my greetings to the security guards, I took the elevator up and settled in. Not long after, a loud crash shook the building. I looked toward the windows and saw debris falling. Panic surged through me, but I had to think fast. My first thought was that the building was under attack. I thought this might be my last day. In that split second, I made the decision to descend the 40 flights of stairs of One World Trade Center without knowing even what I was escaping from. The stairwell quickly filled with people. Firefighters were coming up with their heavy gear while water poured down the steps from the higher floors. The heat was intense and it was difficult to keep moving. One woman stopped, shouting that she couldn't breathe, slowing everyone behind her. Someone else said a plane had hit the building, and for a moment I felt a small wave of relief, thinking it must have been a small private plane. But then the thick, choking smoke ascended the stairwell. At the time, I didn't know that the smoke came from the burning jet fuel of the plane that had struck the second tower. I had no idea that we were amidst an unfathomable tragedy. When I reached the lobby, the scene was beyond anything I'd ever seen. I exited and looked up at the towers with tears streaming down my face. I cried for the lives being lost right in front of my eyes, for the families that were being shattered at that moment, and then I thought of my own family. They didn't know I'd made it out safely, and I had no way to contact them. I'd left my phone and wallet behind. I couldn't even remember my husband's phone number in that moment of panic, and I cried even more. I made it out physically unharmed. The emotional scars, however, were a different story. In the days, months, and years that followed, I struggled with the trauma. It was everywhere. The experience was the turning point that made me reassess my life and my purpose. It reignited the fire I had always had for nursing. The decision to leave finance and become a nurse wasn't immediate, but it became inevitable. I stayed in finance a few more years until a corporate takeover provided the perfect moment to make the leap. That's when I returned to school to pursue my nursing degree. Today, I am a nurse in stem cell transplantation. Every day at New York's Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital, I walk into a room and meet patients who are fighting battles of their own, often with cancers that were caused by the same disaster that I survived. I care for them, hold their hands, listen to their stories, and offer support in what is often the most difficult time in their lives. It's impossible for me to separate my nursing journey from my experience on September 11th, 2001. Every time I stand beside a patient, I am reminded of why I survived that day. My survival was not a coincidence. It was a calling. My son once asked me, "Ma, why are you always in these disasters?" I told him, "This is the journey I was chosen for." Each day I feel grateful for the opportunity to serve those who need it most. Many people live their entire lives and never find their purpose. I survived for a purpose. I know that my purpose is to serve, to heal, and to offer hope. A remarkable woman that some of you may have seen in the last few days being interviewed in a number of news outlets. She's a beautiful, elegant, articulate woman, the kind that we as Americans should be unaccountably proud to call a friend, a fellow citizen, an American. This is the kind of person who should be celebrated and elevated and honored in this country. This is a selfless, scarred, beautiful healer, a person who reaches out her hand without blame, without recrimination, without victimizing herself, without pointing fingers at those who took aim at those towers and changed our country forever. She smiles and she cries and she does God's work. She is a living embodiment of the beginning of this Torah portion. No, we didn't hear it today, but you're all familiar with it. The beginning of Ki Tavo says, "When you enter the land that God gives you, take the first fruit of the soil, put it in a basket, and go to the place that God chose for you. Go to the priest and say," I will paraphrase, "I am grateful. I am the child of a legacy of suffering, but I acknowledge my blessings and I offer my best." That is what Jocelyn Brooks does. She took her unimaginable experience on 9/11 and turned it into a life of giving, a life of caring, a life of chesed, of kindness, and refuah, of healing. She's right. So many people live their entire lives without finding their purpose. But as an exemplar of someone who has, let us count ourselves so fortunate to share a country with the likes of Jocelyn Brooks. May we learn from her and be inspired by her example. Shabbat Shalom.